Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Leveraging Tech-Enabled Services to Support Growth and Increase Client Accounting Services Capacity. First and foremost, we hope that you and your loved ones are happy, healthy, and staying safe. For today's webinar, Ray Barlow and Bart Harris will discuss how and why more and more firms are turning to outsourcing to facilitate growth and increase capacity for their CAS practice. Before I hand it over to our presenters, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. Wolters Kluwer CCH is registered with NASP as a sponsor of continuing professional education on the National Registry of CPE sponsors. As such, we are excited to offer 1 CPE credit for today's webinar. A total of 3 polls will be conducted throughout the presentation, and you'll need to participate in all 3 of them in order to receive CPE credit. If you experience any technical difficulties when trying to submit your poll response, please make sure you let us know in the questions pane. This way we can record your answer manually and get you your CPE certificate. Your CPE certificate will be sent to you in the email you used to register for the webinar within 72 hours after the session. If you do not receive your CPE certificate within 72 hours, please email us at marketing@xcmsolutions.com. Please note, CPE is not available when viewing the on-demand version of this webinar. You will also have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenters by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session. If we do not get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up afterwards. You will also have the opportunity to complete a survey about the webinar, our content, learning objectives, and more at the end of the presentation. This survey will also be sent to you in a follow-up email. We appreciate you taking the time to participate in that survey so we can continue to deliver meaningful content in future presentations. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Ray Barlow and Bart Harris.
Thank you, Alyssa, and welcome everyone to our webinar. I'm having some technical difficulties with the record button here, but occasionally you may see that on your screen, and I'll try to get rid of it whenever that happens. So I'm joined today by Bart Harris, who will join us a little bit later in this session, and we're going to talk a little bit about client accounting services, where it is, where it's been, and the value that can be provided in that area, and some of the challenges that you might be facing today in scaling that practice. So we'll start off with talking about trends in the industry. I think it's always a good way to kind of level set things. We will talk about where client accounting services is today, and I think it's starting to really take off now. And then we'll discuss tech-enabled accounting services, what we can offer to help firms grow this business, and then why do firms come to us? We have a very healthy, strong group of clients that have been leveraging our remote staffing services for quite a number of years. And then Bart will come in and take us through the Expatax remote staffing process. And then we'll finish up talking about how do you get started with this. You know, what are some of the things that we do to get this thing rolling through implementation and, of course, going live. So that's kind of the agenda for today. Before I get started, I would like to talk a little bit about, you know, where XCM Solutions is today. We were back in September of last year acquired by Wolters Kluwer Tax and Accounting. And if you look to the right, obviously we've been doing a lot of outsourcing, whether it's tax outsourcing or client accounting services, remote staffing outsourcing for a number of years. The terminology XCM, when we first began this business, we were strictly a tax outsourcing customer or a tax outsourcing company. And what we needed to do to deliver the information from our customers, the accounting firms, to our staff, the preparers, we needed an application to make that happen. And so we built what we call the Expatax Client Manager to help facilitate moving source documents and getting returns back and forth between our preparers and the firm. And what happened after that was the firms came to us and said, it's great that we can really manage our process with your remote staff, but we'd really love to be able to manage that same process internally within our firms. And that's where XCM was born. Expatax Client Manager was built and changed to XCM workflow for accounting firms so they can actually use it in their own firms. So that's kind of a little history about XCM. So let's talk about trends, and it's really hard not to think about what COVID-19 has had, what kind of impact it has had on the trends that we see today. I mean, really, when you think about going back to the way things used to be, I haven't heard many firms who are really confident that they can do that, whether it's this year, next year, whatever. It may be difficult, maybe a challenge to get back to the way things used to be in 2021 for sure, but maybe even beyond that. And it does look like the work from home hybrid model is here to stay. I think I talked to a lot of firms who say, you know what, we're finding out that we can manage the work this way. We can have some people in the office, some people remotely. We can hire all across the country in a remote scenario. So it's definitely changed the way firms are looking at hiring and the way they're looking at working in the office. Another thing is clearly that firms have accelerated their technology decisions. Some were already on that path and moving to the cloud, and those who did that were really able to adapt quickly to the work from home environment, and those who didn't are obviously looking at that now. And so the cloud is in, desktop is really not, and it's really difficult to manage a remote staff or remote team in a desktop application unless you have some sort of a remote version or virtual environment set up. AI and RPA is clearly on the horizon. We know that it's not quite there. It still requires a lot of human intervention. Whether you're being told that or not, it does. Artificial intelligence is not 100% accurate, and it does require human intervention. RPA is something that we're looking at. We're looking at how do we really increase and automate so many processes through RPA. And the role of the CPA definitely has changed. I don't even know if I can say changing. It has changed. Relationship building, whether it's working with your clients, your small business clients to get them what they need to stay in business, working with any of your clients to help them really manage their business better. And so now really is the time to continue to transform your practice from that real compliance-driven practice to more of an advisory practice. But how do you transform when you're faced with all of these different things every day? We're in the middle of tax season right now. The IRS just announced they're going to extend tax season through May 17th. That's going to create a lot of questions, a lot of more challenges with getting information from your clients. You still have the high pressure deadlines, whether it's now or a little bit later. There are a lot of things that you are faced with every day that create challenges, and one of them that we're going to talk about today significantly is staffing shortages, just finding and retaining staff. And then there's always manual processes that are difficult to follow and difficult to perform. And throughout the day, there's always going to be that crisis of the day. You came in expecting to do A, B, and C. Something your best client called and there's a problem, and A, B, and C are out the door, and now you're on to D, E, and F. So these are some of the challenges you face every day that make it difficult to actually drive that firm business where you want to drive it. So let's talk about where client accounting services is today. I think the cloud accounting world continues to expand. I don't have an exact number, maybe someone else might, but I know that QuickBooks Online has probably now over 5 million subscribers. And so that's a significant number of people leveraging cloud technology. And we also know that the business model has changed for many accounting firms. Rather than try to price this service out in a per hour billable model, which doesn't really necessarily work, firms are starting to price this using the value pricing model, and that's creating more revenue, more opportunity for additional services to drive higher revenue, and it certainly creates that profitable revenue stream. We're also seeing business process outsourcing, where firms are now doing accounts payable, accounts receivable, those kinds of things for their clients. And last on this list is the really need for clients is that they're looking for advice. So they want that forward-looking advice. The pure definition of managerial accounting is below that. But when you think about where things are today, clients are really not looking just for rear view mirror stuff. They know that accounting firms are really good at compliance work. They the ability to say exactly what happened after it happens. But what they really want to do now is look through the windshield on where the firm is going, or where the company is going, where that business is going, how to navigate those risks and opportunities. And obviously, this is what most of your small business companies are looking for right now. And I think that's a big change in direction for so many folks. So let's talk for a second about technology. We get caught up in technology around this area. There's a lot of firms who call it client accounting services. Some of the time we hear it being called virtual CFO. We also now hear it being called client accounting advisory services, and of course outsourced accounting, which is what a lot of firms are offering to their clients. For today, we're gonna focus in on the big picture client accounting services, and we're going to call that everything wrapped into one. So it's the transactions, it's the all of the work that's done monthly, daily, weekly. It's the advisory work. It's the entire package. So we talk about moving from transactions to advisory and more. You know, when this probably 10 years ago or so, really what client accounting services simply was after the fact financial statement preparation, write-up, if you will, and then there was some transaction and compliance processing, and that was considered low profit or low revenue work, and probably still is. And you see the single dollar sign there. I kind of use the restaurant thing. And then when you got into the second level, you're seeing outsourced CFO and controller services, where you're seeing more interaction with clients. You're advising them on business performance. You're spending time really looking out that windshield as opposed to looking out looking in the rearview mirror. And so you see two dollar signs there. And then when you package it all together, the new client accounting services, it's everything. So many firms are now packaging everything together and taking a $2,500 a year, tax preparation, where the year-end cleanup and the tax return is done for $2,500, and turning that into a $2,500 a month total engagement. So you're doing all the transactional work, you're doing the compliance work, you're providing business performance and advisory work and consulting, and you can see that's where you get into the $3 sign. That's where the real money is, and that's where a lot of firms are heading successfully in that direction. So tech-enabled services, let's talk about what we offer or what tech-enabled accounting services is from our perspective. But before we do that, we have our first polling question. I'm going to turn it back to Alyssa.
Perfect. Thanks, Ray. The first polling question is, what experiences have you had with offshore outsourcing of tax and/or client accounting services? Currently leveraging remote staff for tax and accounting work. Tried in the past, currently not using remote staff. Never tried but interested in learning more. Or lastly, we presently do not have a need for outsourced services. We'll give everyone about 30 more seconds to complete the poll. As a reminder, you need to complete all 3 in order to receive your CPE certificate. About 15 more seconds.
I think we have a clear winner here.
We'll give it just 5 to 7 more seconds, and then I'll close the poll. All right, I'm going to close the poll and share the results and turn it over to you, Ray.
All right, thank you. So never tried but interested in learning is almost 50% of the folks on the call, which is really good. I think it's always a good idea to learn, and even if you don't move forward with decisions like this year, just the fact that you understand a little bit more about what is possible within, to solve problems in your firm is a good thing. And then so that was number 1, and number 2 is currently leveraging remote staff for tax or accounting work. So we got some folks that are doing some of that work already, and I think that's a good thing. And then we always have a small percentage that say they currently don't have a need for outsourced services, and that's okay too, because you never know when that need is going to change. I can tell you right now, we had about 6 people tell us this upcoming tax season they didn't need us anymore. And about half of those came back to us and said, we've changed our mind, we do need you guys. So things change, things happen, and the fact that you are aware of these services is a good thing. So let me talk about our specialization in CAS, because I think over the years, I mean, we mentioned earlier that we've been doing CAS outsourcing since 2005, and XCM, the XCM platform has been utilized in CAS departments across the country for as long as that, and more than 50% of our clients, our customers, use XCM in their CAS departments. So we've got a pretty good, strong representation of what we do in CAS. We have expertise. Our team is well trained in Intact, in QBO, Xero, Bill.com, all of the desktop applications. And we have a pretty good team in India today, over 100 employees working to help accounting firms manage their customer work. So this is something that we've been doing for quite a while, and we have some expertise in this area, and that's the expertise you can lean on if you have questions or need help or in any way. So that's a little bit about what we do on the Expertax side for CAS. So what is tech-enabled accounting services? So when you think about a tech-enabled service, it's using existing technology. We're not using anything that doesn't exist today. But what we are doing is we're taking that technology and we're combining it, whether it's cloud, a process, the people, and we're making it and we're delivering it better, faster, cheaper than the traditional alternatives. So when you think of Uber is a classic example. They didn't deliver anything new. They used existing technology that's out there today, GPS technology, and they created an app and they went into business. And they really disrupted the market. And what they were good at, especially in certain areas of the country, was they were very good at execution and efficiency. You could always expect to get a cab when you needed one or a ride when you needed one. And so that's part of it. And even to the extent that they've combined, like Reese's combined chocolate and peanut butter and created Reese's peanut butter. They've combined, technology and people and leveraged all of that to come up with a very, very cool example. And that's what we're trying to do here as well with our tech-enabled services and what we do with our XCM platform. So the other part of this is what is remote staffing? There's a somewhat of a difference between remote staffing and outsourcing. And remote staff are people who obviously do not work physically in the business premises that you work. They work from separate, they work from home, they work from an offshore location like us. So they're definitely remote staff. And a lot of firms have gone to a remote staffing model. And so it's not foreign at all anymore. And so the difference between generally outsourcing and remote staffing is our team is assigned to the firm. So when you sign up with us, you are assigned however many staff people you sign up for, plus a supervisor, plus managers. We work in pods, and Bot will take you through that a little bit. So you are assigned a person to work exclusively for your firm. We do all of the hiring, recruiting, training, managing the staff. That's all of our responsibility. All you have to do, if you want to train that person, we typically go out and get the information that you need, and you can work with that staff to help you to provide the training they need to do the work. So we're going to take care of all of the work, the other things like the hiring and recruiting, so you can easily scale up or scale down if needed in a quick 30-day turnaround. So a lot of our firms, they sign up with us and they maybe sign up for one full-time equivalent. They may add another one for a period of time, and it's very easy to do. So it makes it very flexible for them to work with us, and it's typically something that we do with our existing customers all the time. So how are our team tech enabled? Where possible, we want to use cloud applications. It's not like we don't use desktop, but using cloud applications really can accelerate the work that we do. And we work with the same apps your firm does. So it's QuickBooks, it's Xero, it's Sage, Intact, Bill.com, HubDoc, Expensify, whatever applications, whatever tech stack that you folks use, we can use as well. And the difference is we use the XCM platform to really drive the productivity and the accuracy and the turnaround, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. And so the XCM really drives this whole process, And therefore, really more than 50% of the work we do really does leverage today's technology. And then obviously there's people behind all that. And those people do a lot of the existing work that needs to be done. And we don't rely on email to communicate. So we're not going to bog down your email folder with questions and stuff. We typically use the XCM platform to drive those questions and to respond back and forth. So that's how our team is tech enabled. So why do firms look to us for remote staffing? And it may not be just us. They may look to anyone for remote staffing. I'm talking about us because that's what I know best. But I'm going to turn this over now to Alyssa for our next poll.
Perfect, thank you. The next poll question is, what would you say is the #1 challenge managing your firm today? Attracting new clients, cybersecurity and data privacy, identifying opportunities for practice improvement and cost, raising profitability, and lastly, recruiting and retaining talent. And we'll give everyone about 30 to 40 more seconds to complete the poll. This is the second of 3 polling questions that need to be completed in order to receive your CPE credit. Just about 15 more seconds and I'll close the poll. All right, I'm going to close the poll and share the results.
All right.
And turn it over to you, Ray.
Thanks, Alyssa. Well, 56% of you folks said that recruiting and retaining talent was the #1 challenge. And #2 was identifying opportunities, and that was 24%. This is interesting because we continue to see recruiting and retaining talent being the #1 challenge that out of these particular options here, it seems to be growing in the difference between #1 and #2. So it's not getting any easier from what I can tell, and it's not getting easier, and it probably won't get any easier because, you know, you're looking at the top challenges from 2020, even in a pandemic, you know, the top 1 and 2 challenges were once again recruiting and retention became #1 again, and it actually distanced itself from #2 by 10 percentage points, and then obviously there's others that are still important. You know, we're trying to focus on what's the top challenge, and certainly recruiting, retaining. It's so hard, you know, when you recruit somebody, you know, bring them on board, go through the process of training them, get them ramped up, they become productive and they leave, and that's a big challenge. And one of the reasons that happens so frequently now is because the workforce is changing. I look at resumes and see the workforce resumes that are coming in, and it seems like people are working 1-2 years and then moving on. And that's a big challenge for all industries, but especially for the accounting industry as well, because it does take time. You're in a business, you're selling time basically. So if you need people to ramp up and be very productive in order for you to bill out those clients at a high revenue level, high revenue stream, and profitable revenue stream. So what we're seeing is the workforce changing, and you know, the millennials are coming in, they have a different view of the world. The baby boomer generation is moving out, the millennials are moving in, and I'm not even going to talk about the generation behind the millennials. I don't know what they're going to want, but I can tell you right now, the millennials want work-life balance. They want to be able to work from home. They want to be able to work from anywhere they're at. And firms who are going to address those kinds of requirements and address that effectively will be the firms that are able to retain this talent the best. And sometimes it's not easy to do because, you know, working from home isn't perfect. You know, we know that it's great for people to be able to work from home. Think of all the time you save not commuting. I used to have a 2-hour commute from time to time. 2 hours, kept me up to speed on what was going on in the world on the news front, but it was 4 hours a day of, you know, sitting and listening to or watching traffic. And so that was not productive all the time. But when you're working from home, you're pretty much productive the minute you walk in. There's no commuting time. It's pretty cool. But it's really hard from a company standpoint to keep that team motivated. You don't see them every day. You're not working side by side with them. And so that becomes a bit of a challenge in keeping the team motivated. The second thing is new hire training and ramp up. You can probably hire somebody, a new hire, and train them pretty easily via the web, but how do you ramp them up? How do you ensure that they're learning effectively and getting ramped up as quickly as you would like them to? That's a little bit more difficult in a remote environment. Collaboration and communication, still, it's not perfect. I can tell you right now, the number of meetings this creates. When you're in an office environment, you have less meetings, but you talk to more people. When you're in a remote environment, you have more meetings, and oftentimes they're just stacked up. So that's a challenge. Accountability, it's not necessarily accountability in that somebody's not doing the job. It's accountability. Are you ensuring that the right work is being sent to the right people, and it's being sent fairly to the right people? Making sure that the right people get the right amount of work and somebody's not overworked versus underworked. Those things are important too. And then changing priorities. I know people work from home, sometimes they have families, sometimes they have young kids. I hear dogs barking, I hear kids in the background all the time. So priorities may change from 1 hour to another in a remote work environment. And I have to tell you that the technology that you're working with at home may not necessarily be as good as the technology you have in the office. In the office, you have high-speed internet, you might have multiple monitors, 2, 3, 4 monitors, desktop computers maybe. You just have better technology to work from. And ultimately what that leads is to a challenge around productivity. Are you as productive in the office as you are in your in your home environment? So those are all some of the challenges we face working from home. This is another survey from another result from the AFOT survey, and I think what I see here is the question was, wish you had more time. What would you do if you had more time? Outside of vacationing and relaxing, there's a book I read called Unleash Your Leader, How to Win in Business. It talks about the way you spend your time with your business, and it references the 3 circles, those 3 circles being working in your business, working on your business, and working outside your business. Whereas working in your business is just like what it sounds. You're doing the work needed to create the revenue in your business, and that sometimes takes up all your time. And that's a challenge, because working on your business is things like training your staff, looking for new clients, managing the business. That's kind of working on your business. And then working outside your business is more about, a future look where you're looking for a long-term view, maybe the next 3 years or so. It's kind of like ways to improve your client offering, looking at what's happening in the marketplace, or even, professional development. So you got to think about how much time do you spend in your business, on your business, and outside your business. The magic ratio, according to the book, was 30% of your time in your business, 50% of your time on your business, and then 20% of your time outside your business. That's how you grow your business. That's how you can really develop and make that happen. So if you have something, if you're not there yet, this is something to definitely strive for. So why do people come to us to look for remote staffing? We've talked about almost all of these already, but onboarding and training challenges for sure. This is one of the main reasons people come to us. And they're having turnover and staffing shortages. Sometimes the best clients for client advisory work or client accounting services are clients that have heavy transactional requirements. And you just don't have the staff to perform those transactional work, the bookkeeping work that needs to be done. You can't do it because you don't have the staff. So you're missing out on maybe a very good client and a very, very good revenue opportunity. So that leads to that third bullet, which is no time for client advisory work. If you don't have time if you spend all your time doing the compliance work, when are you going to be able to get to that advisory work? And then we also hear firms just can't grow their practice because they don't have the resources. Each time you take on more clients, you need to have the resources to handle the work so that you can grow that business. And lastly, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the next slide, but it's clearly a lower cost model that we're offering. I don't think there's any doubt that you can find a staff for less than what we're offering. And speaking of that, this is an example, and this is not the same example for everybody out there, and it depends on where you're located. Folks on the left and right coast may be higher in what we are showing as an example for a salary. Folks in middle America may be right about there or maybe a little bit lower. But what we try to do is say, okay, what's the return on your investment? If you're going to spend, in this case, $2,300 a month on a full-time equivalent, what does that get you in terms of an ROI across the full year? So we loaded up all of the different costs, and then we took the utilization, because typically a staff person is utilized at about 82%. We took the extra 18% they're not utilized, we loaded that in, and then we took the $27,600 away that you would pay for us, and we came in with a $61,372 return on investment per FTE with us. You can look at that, and we can certainly walk through how that works out for each one of you, but basically just an example of the type of ROI we see with firms utilizing our CAS outsourcing or CAS remote staffing. So our last polling question, Alyssa.
Yes, thank you. I will watch this polling question. The last polling question is, what is your biggest concern about utilizing remote staffing services? Employee staff perception, client perception, security of client data, quality of work, or loss of control? As a reminder, this is the third and final polling question that needs to be completed for CPE. We'll give everyone about 30 more seconds. About 15 more seconds to complete the polling question. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. If you had any trouble submitting your polling question, just send a note in the chat so that we can record your poll.
All right. So number one was quality of work. We'll address some of these concerns, but clearly quality is important. You want to make sure that the work that we're doing saves you time, doesn't create more time for you if you have to spend most of your time correcting that work. So we go through a long process of ensuring that what we've built over the years is solid, and that we can plug in staff people and make it work for you. We customize as needed, based on your processes, and we leverage a lot of what we've done over the years to help manage that overall. So quality of work is critical to us, and it's the most important thing that we strive for. Security, obviously security, and then client perception were number 2 and 3. And I think we'll walk through some of those concerns as well. But I think overall, I was happy to see that loss of control was not the major issue, because we think you have complete control leveraging the XEM platform for this work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Bart Harris, who's going to run us through starting with myths on outsourcing. So Bart, take it away.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it. That's first slide, the last slide you just showed really leads into the first part of my presentation on the myths of outsourcing. So we're going to cover those in a little bit more depth. We're going to start with the employee perception. Obviously, it's common for employees to be hesitant to the idea of outsourcing at first. It's important to talk to your employees, about the benefits of outsourcing, the work-life balance that they're going to gain that Ray had mentioned, as well as the higher level skills that they will have the opportunity to exercise and strengthen, which will, accelerate and grow their careers at a faster pace than if they were bogged down with data entry throughout the firm. The next one is client perception. You are your client's trusted business advisor, whom trusts that you're asking the right questions, performing the due diligence before entering into any new contracts or agreement. Outsourcing has been going on for decades. It's commonplace among the market. 100% of the big four and many of the top 300 firms already have their own outsource offices in India with thousands of employees. And of course, the security, we'll touch on that. Our securities and controls are tighter than the vast majority of firms out there. Why? Because we have to. That's our business. We undergo an annual SOC 2 audit, which is the controls audit from a third-party CPA firm. We go through that annually, and it's based on security, confidentiality, uptime requirements set by the AICPA. And we'll touch on that a few slides later in a little more detail. Partner perception. You know, clients are extremely happy the work is getting done on a timely basis, giving the firm more time to spend on the bigger challenges of their clients. From all the customers, I don't really hear this come up after they've implemented. Once they've implemented, that really doesn't ever come up again. Let's talk a little bit about quality. Your team members undergo firm and software specific training programs. The FTs are dedicated to the firm for which they are assigned. We have no pooling, and thus the FT becomes more familiar, more knowledgeable, and more efficient over time. The firm's specific procedures we document, and it's kept up to date and reviewed regularly with you, the firm and your team. We also offer the complimentary supervisor review, which acts as a control center to ensure the work and questions are consistent and accurate. And then the loss of control. The XCM workflow increases a firm's efficiency by providing standardized processes and workflow, as well as the ability anytime, anywhere, access to see the task information. The FTs work just like a firm's remote staff, with higher visibility and control through the use of XCM workflow and dedicated US team members to help facilitate this process. I had mentioned, go ahead, next slide. I had mentioned the dual annual SOC 2 certifications, and this is done annually. We've had this done annually for the past 5 years. It is conducted in accordance with the AICPA standards, which is going to ensure the highest trust services criteria available regarding security availability, processing integrity, and confidentiality. So the next slide we're going to look at is what I'll call the voice of our customers. And I'm not going to read each and every one of these. I just want to let you know I sit in a lot of weekly calls with our client accounting services outsourced customers. Sometimes these calls are on a weekly basis, sometimes bi-weekly. A few only elect to have them once a month. I get to hear these comments live in real time on these calls, which I appreciate. Just wanted to point out maybe 2 of them. The third one down, we have been so impressed with the Expatax team. Obviously, we love to hear that, as you would love to hear that type of feedback from your clients as well. And then the one down, a few more, we should have done this years ago. Well, obviously, my job is to tell you probably sooner's a little better than later. We're going to move on to the Expatax process and how does it work. And I'll wait for that slide to change. So this is a slide that's going to show the remote staff model. On the left is a screenshot of our tax outsourcing customers. On the right is a screenshot of our CAS remote staffing. In the middle is the XCM solutions that is used for either process. And I will note we have a good many clients that use us both for tax outsourcing as well as CAS outsourcing. And the XCM solutions that's in the center is really our secret sauce. And this is going to allow us to assign tasks to individuals, checklists to reinforce the processes, client-specific project points with individual clients, and then tasks between departments. So let's take a quick look at the staff. And again, just a few key points here. What we like to pride ourselves on is that we become an extension of your staff. Your team is going to go through a rigorous training curriculum. The staff person that's assigned to your firm will have the equivalent of 1 to 3 years bookkeeping experience. And then you're also assigned that experienced supervisor that's going to train your full-time equivalent and provides the review of the work completed. Now, I also want to note that even though we're hiring experienced staff, that once they're hired with Expatax, they go through 2 months of intensive, extensive training to bring them up to speed. So again, we're encapsulating the people, the process, and the technology. So let's look a little bit more deeper into the team structure. And again, because I think this is pretty important. So you can see that depending how many FTEs you contract for, it could be 1, 2, 3, or more. And that FTE is going to report up to the supervisor. That supervisor is going to be responsible for the file review and firm communication. The supervisor reports to the team manager. And again, as you can see, this is a pod. We work in the pods. We don't work in a pooled environment. And this is always going to provide you better consistency week after week as everybody gains more knowledge into the type of work we're doing and become more efficient. The other key that I mentioned prior is we have weekly or bi-weekly calls with your firm and your team. On that call will be the supervisor, the manager, usually the training coordinator, in a lot of cases, even the general manager that you see over on the left. So on the next slide, we're just going to take you a little bit through how the outsourcing works. So as you can see on the left, total left upright, the new CAS client you have, gain access to their systems, and then your accounting firm. So the project's going to be entered into XCM workflow. It's going to be moved to your team. That team's going to use your tech stack, whatever it might be, QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online, Bill.com, Xero. They're going to complete the work in that tech stack. They're going to maybe have some questions, send it back to your firm, and then you can see the arrows coming back that your firm may answer those questions, send it back to the team. The team will complete that work in that software and then go back to you for firm review. You'll probably clear the review points and it may be done, or if there's additional questions, it could go through again. One of the things that I want to point out is this system is probably no different than you probably work today. It's no different than how you're trying to work with remote employees, possibly in the United States. And again, probably one of the key things that I hear time and time again on the calls that I attend to, that the firms like and enjoy considering them an extension of their current team. Ray, I'll let it go back to you.
Thanks, Bart. So moving right along, we've talked a lot about the XCM platform and how invaluable it is in the service delivery side and how it makes the work that we do even possible. And so there's 6 elements of what XCM platform does that allows us to be able to do the work on your behalf. And one of them is the standardization of your processes. If we had no idea what your process was and everything was manual, it would be very difficult for us to do the work. By establishing a process, we work with you on that process, and then taking that process and embedding it into XCM workflow, our team is able to repeat your process day in and day out. And that's the major reason why we can get this work done, because we're not trying to guess. We know exactly what you want us to do, and there are other things within the platform that help us, specifically are there custom pieces to this, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other thing is the delegation piece, where you can take a particular task and send it to us. Maybe you want to take some of that task and send it to our team, and within that task, maybe you want to be able to see what the results are and how they're doing. You remain you have those tasks visible to you. We call this dynamic checklist. It allows you to parse out the work to multiple people at the same time while continually having the overall view of what that task is and what the progress is on that task. So that's a pretty nice feature. Communication. We'll talk about this again. Important task-related knowledge, instructions, things about a particular client that you want us to know that may be different than other clients. You put them into XCM's points and they remain with that client throughout. And then the fourth thing is predictability. Recurring tasks are table stakes. You've got to be able to do, you've got to be able to set up recurring tasks. In the world of client accounting services, that is something that happens all the time. You typically have things that happen every week, things that happen every month, quarter, whatever it might be, and you're able to set those up, and then our team is able to deliver on that. And then collaboration, you can easily assign, reassign, or manage staff workflow or staff work. If somebody is out and you need to send that work to us, you can easily do that. Just take that work and assign it to your outsource team. And then lastly, but most importantly, visibility. You know who has a task. You always know what the task is. You know where it is in the process. You know when it's due, and you know why it isn't completed yet. You can find that out as well. So the ability to deliver and the service delivery side with the XCM platform is what we kind of call the secret sauce here. And I'm going to walk you through some examples of what I've just talked about. This is an example of a monthly close. This is a checklist embedded into a process that's called a monthly close. And over to the right, we've assigned this monthly close to multiple people. But you remain as the assigner. You remain with the top level view of that task. You can see whether it's done or not. You can check the statuses on that, so you always know what's going on. But most importantly, this process has been built with help from us. We have hundreds of processes. So if you don't have processes right now, we've got processes. Whether it's a monthly close, a bank rec, financial statements, whatever the process might be, we've been building processes for accounting firms for years. So we can help you in that area. And then this is what we call that dynamic checklist that allows you to see what's going on as things get done. So you have to have all these things done before the monthly close can be finalized, and you'll know exactly when everything is done. These are the points I mentioned before where you can assign client-specific or task-specific points, whether it's in this case, it's a bank feed. Here are some examples of some of the points that have been added. In this case, it's instructions and knowledge, where it's telling us exactly what needs to be done. That might be different than other clients. And then, of course, you put this in one area of XCM. It stays there. You don't have to get emails back and forth. You can respond to these right here. And so it's much easier to manage the process of questions and answers and things like that without having to rely heavily on email. And we talked recurring tasks. Just the administrative nightmare of creating these tasks all the time would be a challenge. But for us, this is how we create those recurring tasks. You can add issues and points, so the issues and points will carry into the recurring tasks. So whatever that task might be, whether it's a monthly close, whether it's anything that has to be done on a frequent basis, we can create that here in this recurring tasks pane. And again, I believe this is table stakes in the world of client accounting services. So what are some of the work that we do? So typically we're going to be doing weekly and monthly bookkeeping. We're going to process bank feeds. We're going to enter transactions. We're going to record checks and deposits, and we're going to do payroll compliance, where we're not a payroll processing company, but we can do payroll compliance. And then, of course, the bank and credit card reconciliations. As you get into the next level with us, we'll do invoicing, we'll do accounts receivable, accounts payable, things like that. And then at the end of listing is period end accounting, where we can help with a number of different things: journal entries, balance sheets, those kinds of things, payroll and sales tax and things like that. So that's on the left side of some of the things that we do every day for clients. On the right side, we have financial reporting, and then we have special projects that we do for firms that are existing customers. So if you're an existing customer and you come to us and say, hey, I have a litigation support project that I need your help with, it's going to last 3 months, can you do it? The answer is yes, we can jump on that and help you with that project. It's kind of like cable TV. If you're already a subscriber with us, if you're already working with us in the area of client accounting services, we can jump in and set up one of these special projects for you. And so this is some of the type of work that we do. And the firms, and these are an example of the cloud accounting ecosystem that we leverage. It's a huge ecosystem. I mean, if you think about all of the different types of apps that are out there today, just trying to manage and understand all of these applications is a full-time job, and I'm not sure anybody can actually do it. So when you think about the work that we do, we're typically involved in the basic accounting and GL work every day. And then we're working with, and I know some of these names may have changed, but we're working with some of these firms every day, and we have the experience in working with those firms. And so we go from accounting and GL work to BPO work to full service, where we might even go into do the work in some other areas like sales tax or payroll compliance. So there's really a lot of things that we can do. It's very few things that we can't do. There's just two things that we don't do. Number one is we don't talk to your clients, and number two, we don't move money. So we can do pretty much anything else, but we just won't move money, and we won't talk to your clients. We think that's your role, to talk to your clients. All of this really does create time for you folks to work, to scale your practice, to offer outsourced accounting to your clients, to offer overall client advisory services as well. You have the opportunity to spend more time helping them grow their business, and ultimately to be that strategic advisor. I think you're always their trusted advisor, because they wouldn't be working with you if you weren't their trusted advisor. But it would be great if you could become their strategic advisor. I recall a friend of mine who just became the president of a small business, and it was maybe a $5 million business, and he went out to bid on a project to really look for a way to grow that business. He was looking for someone to come in and put together a strategic plan for his business. And I asked him if he had, asked his accountant to bid on that job, and he said, no, my accountant's too busy. Every time I saw him, every time I talked to him, he was always too busy, so I figured he didn't have time to do this. And it turned out to be a six-figure award, and his accountant never got a chance to bid on it because he was busy doing compliance work. I'm sure that accountant would have given up 10 clients to get to bid on that business and win it. And that's what we hope to help you folks accomplish by unloading some of that compliance work, allow you to really work with your existing customers as their strategic partner. So how do you get started in this? And it's really all about implementation and what we do around on-site and virtual implementation. We take the time to really ensure that we have that integration between your firm and our remote staff. We create the visibility so that you know exactly what we're doing, and the 5 W's we talked about: who, what, where, when, why. All of that's set up. We used to do this always on site. Now, obviously, we do it virtually as well. It's usually a couple of days of work, and we set up the remote access, and we make sure the technology is there. And then we go through all of the processes. We work with you to identify your processes and document your processes and your specific processes that you want to do moving forward. And that's when we begin embedding those processes into XCM workflow. And then we facilitate the training for your remote staff. If you need to train our team on certain things that you guys do, we'll help facilitate that. Sometimes a lot of what we do is we ask you folks we build videos for our team to see so they can learn to do these things pretty easily. And then we train your staff on how to use XCM workflow to get the most out of the remote staffing. And all of that takes place, in the first part of the training session. And then as we move into what we call go live, we're starting to submit work. We're getting task-specific communication. How are we handling these things? And then we begin, as Bart had mentioned before, setting up the recurring calls to make sure that we're continually working with you and ensuring that continuous feedback and looking for areas to improve throughout the whole time. So it's all part of what we do in this process. And then we can roll out additional task types, things that that you might want to add to what we do already to increase the things that we do. We're always working with firms to say, what else can you send us? What else can we do for you? And then each year we have a complimentary performance review where we go through all the things that we've done for you and the type of work we've done, the way that you're leveraging XCM, and we're looking for ways to improve in those areas. And it's something that a lot of our firms enjoy because it gives them an opportunity to make sure that they're using the tools to the best of their ability. And then obviously it's always a continuous performance and actionable improvement. We want to get better at what we do, and we look forward to that kind of feedback from our customers. So that's what I have for you folks today. I think there's maybe a few minutes left for us to answer any questions. Alyssa, I don't know if we have any questions or at this point.
Yep, we do have a few questions. The first question is, how are you able to recruit to meet the outsourcing needs?
Yeah, so we have what we do is we build a bench, and we're always ahead of the game. So typically our bench is up to 10 full-time equivalents that sit on the bench, and what they do is they sit, and once they're fully trained, they're sitting and they become part of a pod that's already in existence. And so they're learning on the job all the time. And when it's time for them to step up and become somebody's full-time equivalent, they're already trained and ready to go. It's also really good because they're right there. So literally within 30 days, we can probably get them ramped up and get them ready to do the work that you need. So we take advantage of hiring in advance. And again, we try to keep a good size bench strength so that we know what's coming down the pike in terms of new customers, and one of our best areas is when our existing customers continue to add more full-time equivalents with us. So good question.
Perfect. Looks like we might have time for one more question. Is how are we able to determine the number of clients that one FTE can handle?
Yeah, good question. I think what we typically do is we start the ramp up slowly. So we'll begin feeding to our team the work that you need done, and then gradually increase that over the course of maybe the first couple of months. No different than if you were hiring if you had a new employee who was learning the job, learning the work, just ramping up, getting better, and from that point, we look at if you're trying to figure out the hours, we work 40 hours. Our typical 40 hours a week is what our team works, and we will begin to kind of assess how much work that your firm can get to us and how much work we can get done within those 40 hours each week. So it's a partnership is more than it is a specific, you're going to send us this much work and we're going to get all of that work done. It's more of a partnership, and we have an accounting manager who manages that process for us with you. We give you utilization reports that tell you how much of our time is being utilized. So if we're over 100%, that maybe we're taking on too much. If we're under 100%, we can take on more. So we provide that weekly utilization report to make sure that you know exactly how much work we're getting out the door for you. So 2 good questions.
Perfect. And I think that's all we have time for today. As a reminder, for those that are interested, there are slides available for download. And if you would like a copy of the presentation, please email marketing@xcmsolutions.com and we can send that to you. And if we did not get to your question today, we will be sure to follow up after the webinar. So
thank you, everyone.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye.